When you think of iconic French cities, maybe Paris comes to mind first. Or perhaps Nice down on the coast.
Sure, the big names.
Exactly. But today, we're diving into a city with a really distinct personality. You know it instantly by its color, Toulouse, affectionately called La Ville Rose, the Pink City.
Yeah, and it's all down to those terracotta bricks. They just dominate the cityscape.
They really do. It gives it such a warm feel. And what's interesting, as you said, is that this pink brick, it's not just decoration, right? It feels woven into the city's whole story.
Absolutely. As we get into it, you'll see how it connects to its history, even its ups and downs economically. It's quite surprising.
Okay, I'm intrigued. And geographically, Toulouse is in a pretty fascinating spot, too.
Yeah.
Capital of Haute-Garonne and the whole Occitania region. It's kind of nestled there between the Mediterranean and the Atlantic. And you got the Pyrenees nearby, looming in the background.
Yeah, that location's sort of central but southern. It's been quietly shaping things for centuries. It feels like a natural hub.
And it's not a small place either. We're talking about a major French city here.
Oh, definitely. The city itself passed 500,000 people back in 2022. And the whole metropolitan area is big, over 1.5 million. That makes it the fourth largest in France.
Fourth largest. And I read it's growing really fast.
Incredibly fast. Between 2014 and 2020, it was the third fastest growing large metro area in the whole country.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a real buzz about the place, real dynamism.
Right. Which brings us nicely to what we want to do today. We're going to really dig into what makes Toulouse tick, what makes it so significant and dynamic. We've gathered a lot on it.
Sounds good.
So where should we start? Maybe with the area where Toulouse is, well, a global leader. Its economy.
Makes sense. And when you talk Toulouse economy, you have to talk aerospace. It really is the heart of the European aerospace industry.
Like the headquarters for some huge names are there.
Exactly. Airbus, obviously. The SPOT satellite system, for Earth observation, that's based there. ATR, the regional aircraft maker. Aerospace Valley, the whole cluster.
Wow. How did that concentration even happen? Was it always an aviation city?
Not always, but it got an early start. World War I saw aviation industries move there, partly for safety. Then later, especially after World War II, there was serious government investment, a deliberate choice to make it the center for aerospace.
Ah, okay. So a combination of early history and strategic planning. And it's not just private companies, is it? There's a big space presence, too.
Huge. CNES, the French space agency, has its main center there, the Toulouse Space Center. It's the biggest national space center in Europe.
Bigger than anything in Germany or the UK.
In terms of national centers, yes. Plus, you've got NATO Space Center of Excellence there now, and the French military's Space Command and Space Academy. It's quite the hub for all things space, military, and civilian.
Incredible. So Airbus, satellites, Space Command. What other aerospace players are around?
Oh, the list goes on. You've got major sites for Safran, Thales Alenia Space, Airbus Defense, and space is big there too. Collins Aerospace, Liebherr Aerospace. It's a whole ecosystem. Suppliers, research, manufacturing. Everything feeds into everything else. It's deeply embedded in the city now.
You can feel that connection, I imagine. And does that impact travel? Like just getting in and out of the city?
Massively. Think about this. The flight route between Toulouse-Blagnac Airport and the Paris airports. Well, back in 2019, before the pandemic dip, it was the busiest route in France.
The busiest. More than Paris to Nice or Lyon.
Yep. 3.2 million passengers just on that one route corridor. That tells you something about the flow of business, engineers, executives.
It really does. Constant movement. It's no wonder publications like L'Express and Challenges have ranked it as France's most dynamic city.
Exactly. Those rankings reflect that combination, the high-tech industry dominance, the connectivity, the growth. It paints a picture of a city really firing on all cylinders.
Okay, so a modern powerhouse, definitely. Leading edge stuff. But like you said, cities like this have deep roots. Let's peel back those layers and look at the history. Where does Toulouse begin?
It goes way back. The Romans were the ones who really established it, calling it Tolosa, the name itself. Well, its origin is a bit murky, could be Aquitanian, maybe Iberian, possibly linked to local Gaulish tribes like the Volcae, Tectosages, or other Celtic roots. Scholars still debate it.
But the Romans were definitely there early on.
Oh, yeah. By the 2nd century BC, it was already an important Roman military outpost, a key spot for them.
Makes sense, strategically. And then, after Gaul was conquered, it became a proper Roman city?
Yes, within the province of Gallia Narbonensis, that's basically southern France today. And then Emperor Augustus did something quite significant. He shifted the main settlement.
Shifted it where?
Down from the nearby hills, right onto the banks of the Garonne River.
Ah, for trade, presumably, along the river.
Precisely. It was a smart move. Opened up much better trade routes, commerce, shows you how logistics mattered even back then. And later, Emperor Domitian gave the city a special kind of recognition.
What was that?
He associated it with Pallas Athena, the goddess of wisdom and arts.
So it wasn't just about military power or money, it was seen as a cultural place, too.
Exactly. Big Latin poets like Martial and Ausonius even called it Palladia Tolosa, the city of Pallas. That nickname stuck around for ages. It shows an early reputation for arts and learning.
That's fascinating. And religiously, what was happening around that time?
Well, Christianity was making its way there. Around 250 AD, you have the martyrdom of Saint Saturnin. He became the city's first bishop, a really foundational moment for the church in Toulouse.
Okay, now skipping ahead a bit, after the Roman Empire faded in the west, Toulouse actually became capital.
It did. For a while, in the 5th century, it was the capital of the Visigothic kingdom, a major political center in post-Roman Europe.
Until the Franks took over.
Right. Clovis and the Franks defeated the Visigoths in 507. But even then, Toulouse didn't just disappear. It remained important, becoming the capital of the huge region of Aquitaine within the Frankish realm.
And wasn't there a really significant battle fought there in the 8th century?
Yes, absolutely crucial. The Battle of Toulouse in 721. Duke Odo of Aquitaine won a major victory against an invading Umayyad Muslim army.
And that's considered important because...
Because many historians see it as a key moment that halted the northward push of Muslim forces into what's now France, into Christian Europe. A really decisive battle fought right there. Its significance echoes down the centuries.
Wow. A lot happened in that spot. So after that, what political structure emerged?
Gradually, you see the rise of the county of Toulouse. It was sort of quasi-independent, technically within the Carolingian kingdom of Aquitaine, but with its own powerful counts.
And one of those counts became quite famous, didn't he? Raymond IV.
That's the one. A major leader of the First Crusade in the late 11th century. Put Toulouse firmly on the map in terms of European power politics and major historical events.
But it wasn't all just battles and crusades, was it? I read about a cultural flourishing around that time, too.
Oh, very much so. The 11th and 12th centuries were a golden age, culturally speaking, in southern France, and Toulouse was right in the mix.
What defined that?
Well, you had this strong Latin culture, Roman law was still very influential, and the nobility was often quite educated. And crucially, this was the era of the troubadours.
Ah, the poets writing in Occitan.
Exactly. Composing lyrical poetry in Occitan, or Provençal as it was sometimes called, it was considered one of the most sophisticated languages in Europe at the time. And the counts of Toulouse were big patrons. Count Raymond V, for instance, supported the famous troubadour Bernard de Ventador.
So a real center for arts and literature alongside the political power. And what about the city itself? How was it run?
Things were changing there too. In the 12th century, the citizens started getting more power. They established these officials called capitouls.
Capitals, what were they?
Basically municipal consuls, elected officials who ran the city's day-to-day affairs. They gained quite a bit of autonomy from the Carents.
Interesting. And there was something about a split within the city, the Bourg.
Yeah, that's a curious detail. The Bourg was the district that grew up around the Basilica of Saint Sernin. Initially smaller, population-wise, than the old Roman cité, but it ended up having equal representation among the capitals. Shows a kind of unique power balance within Toulouse. And economically, the city was doing well, partly thanks to grain mills on the Garonne.
Mills powering the economy.
Lots of them. And one company, the Basical Milling Company, is actually famous for being one of the very earliest examples of a joint stock company where people owned shares. Quite ahead of its time.
Fascinating. Early capitalism right there on the Garonne. Okay, let's jump forward quite a bit now. How did the modern era, say the 20th century, shape Toulouse?
World War I was a big turning point. Because Toulouse was relatively far from the fighting, it became a safe place to relocate industries. Chemical plants moved there, but crucially, so did early aviation pioneers.
Like who?
Figures like Latécoère and de Watine set up shop. This really laid the foundation for Toulouse's future in aerospace. It led directly to the creation of Aéropostale.
The legendary airmail service, selling Zupery and all that. That started in Toulouse.
Absolutely. Those pioneering, often dangerous flights connecting continents literally took off from Toulouse. It's a direct link to its modern identity.
Wow. And this industrial growth, did it change the population much?
It did. The city grew steadily. There were waves of immigration too, Italian and Spanish refugees, particularly between the wars. Then a big influx in the early 1960s.
From where?
French citizens, the Pieds Noirs, returning from Algeria after its independence, that significantly boosted the population. And then a key moment in 1963.
What happened then?
The French government designated Toulouse as one of its métropoles d'équilibre balancing metropolises. The idea was to counterbalance Paris's dominance. And crucially, Toulouse's specific mission was to specialize in aerospace.
So it was deliberate government policy to double down on aviation and space.
Yes. That decision really turbocharged its growth in that sector and attracted more investment, more people. It cemented its path.
Of course, recent history hasn't been entirely smooth sailing. There was the AZF disaster.
Yes, the explosion at the AZF fertilizer factory in 2001. A terrible tragedy. It left a deep scar on the city physically and emotionally, a reminder of the risks that can come with industry.
A difficult chapter. And more recently, its administrative role changed too.
Right. With the big regional reforms in France in 2016, Toulouse became the official regional capital, the prefecture, of the newly created Occitanie region, which merged Midi-Pyrénées and Languedoc-Roussillon. So its importance as a regional center was formally recognized.
Okay, so a long, complex journey from Roman outpost to modern aerospace and administrative capital. Let's talk about what people see when they go there. We mentioned La Ville Rose. Tell us more about those bricks.
Well, as we said, it's all about the local terracotta, pinkish clay bricks. Funnily enough, back in the day, using brick was sometimes seen as, well, less prestigious than stone. Maybe a sign you couldn't afford the fancy stuff.
Oh, really? So it wasn't always a point of pride?
Not necessarily in the way it is now,
Yeah.
but over time, it's become the city's absolute signature. People adore it. And the way the color changes with the light, it's really something. Deep rose early and late, warmer, almost orange tones midday. The city seems to glow.
It sounds beautiful, like the whole city is blushing. And beyond the general look, there are some standout buildings, including UNESCO World Heritage Sites.
Several, actually. The Canal du Midi, which runs through Toulouse, got listed in 1996. A 17th century engineering marvel connecting the Atlantic to the Med shows that innovative spirit again.
And then 2 more sites linked to the Santiago de Compostela pilgrimage.
Exactly. In 1998, both the Basilica of Saint Sernin and the Hôtel du Saint-Jacques were recognized as key stops on that ancient pilgrimage route.
Saint Sernin. That's the huge Romanesque church, right?
Huge is the word. It's the largest remaining Romanesque building in Europe, just stunning architecture from that period, and a vital point for pilgrims for centuries. Plus, inside,
The relics. I heard it has an amazing collection.
truly extraordinary. Apparently, it holds the largest collection of holy relics anywhere outside the Vatican. Bits of the true cross, remains of over 100 saints. It's a place deeply layered with faith and history.
Incredible. And what about the Church of the Jacobins? That's another famous one, isn't it? Known for its light.
Yes, the light inside is beautiful, often described as rose-tinted filtering through the stained glass. And architecturally, it's famous for its massive columns supporting the vaulted ceiling. One central column fans out like a giant stone palm tree. It's called Le Palmier, the palm tree.
A stone palm tree.
That's the image it evokes. It's directly over the tomb of Thomas Aquinas, the great theologian. Very striking. And if you climb the bell tower there, you get fantastic views over all those pink rooftops.
Sounds worth the climb. And the main cathedral. Toulouse Cathedral.
That one's interesting architecturally. It took so long to build, over 5 centuries, and the plans kept changing. So the result is this kind of quirky, fascinating mix of different styles all bolted together. It tells its own story of the city's long history.
Right in the center of it all, there's the Capitol. More than just a city hall, I gather.
Oh, much more. It really is the pink heart of Toulouse. Not just the building's color, but it's the civic center. The main square in front is where everything happens. And inside, the staterooms have these amazing murals.
What do they show?
They depict big moments from Toulouse's history, the seasons, allegories of things like love. It's very grand and very much tied to the city's identity.
And Toulouse seems to really invest in museums, too. The Musée des Augustins sounds fascinating, being in an old convent.
It's the main fine arts museum, yes? Housed in a beautiful Gothic, former Augustinian convent, great collection. And a quirky extra, they have a collection of Old gargoyles, rescued from buildings that were demolished or weathered away. You can see them up close.
Rescued gargoyles. I
Yeah.
love that. Then there's the Bemberg Foundation. That's in a very grand old mansion, the Hôtel d'Assezat.
Yeah.
And didn't you mention that building links to a specific trade?
Exactly. The Hôtel d'Assezat is one of the most spectacular Renaissance mansions in the city. It was built in the 16th century, right when Toulouse was making a fortune from the woad trade.
Woad. That's the plant for blue dye, right? Before indigo came along.
That's the one. Pastel, they called it locally. Toulouse was the absolute center of the European pastel trade. It made merchants incredibly rich, and they built these stunning hotels particuliers, these mansions, like Assezat. Now it houses the Bemberg Foundation's amazing private art collection, Renaissance, Impressionists. So yes, color pink from the bricks, blue from the woad. It's literally built into the city's wealth and history.
That connection between color, trade, and architecture is really striking. What about the city's Roman past? Is there a museum for that?
Yes, the Musée Saint-Raymond. It focuses specifically on the archaeology of Toulouse and the surrounding region. It's got a fantastic collection of Roman sculptures.
Where did they find those?
Many came from a nearby Roman villa, the Villa Chirigan. They found an incredible series of marble busts of Roman emperors there, really well preserved. They're a highlight, the Gallery of Emperors. Gives you a real connection to that Roman Tolosa.
Sounds like a must-see. And there are plenty of other museums, too, covering all sorts.
Oh yeah, a real variety. Musée Paul Dupuy for decorative arts, clocks, watches. Musée Georges Labille has Far Eastern and Egyptian artifacts. The Muséum de Toulouse for natural history, housed in another former convent. And Les Abattoirs for modern and contemporary art.
Les Abattoirs, the slaughterhouses.
Yeah, it's in a converted 19th century municipal slaughterhouse. Quite a striking setting for modern art, so really a huge range of cultural options.
And of course, given its main industry, there must be aviation and space museums.
Absolutely. Aeroscopia is the big aeronautical museum, tells the whole story of aviation in Toulouse with lots of planes to see. And then there's the Cité de l'Espace, the City of Space. Very interactive, all about space exploration, satellites, rockets. Really highlights Toulouse's role today. It balances the history nicely.
That blend, again, past and future. And if you just want to relax, are there nice parks?
Definitely. The Jardin Royal and the Jardin des Plantes are lovely central gardens, great places to unwind, and for a real slice of local life.
Let me guess, a market.
You got it! The Victor Hugo Market is fantastic. Bustling, full of amazing food, plus just strolling along the Garonne riverbanks is a classic Toulouse experience.
Okay, so architecture, history, culture, local life, covered. One last crucial piece of the puzzle seems to be education. Toulouse is a big university city.
Huge! And it has been for a very, very long time. The University of Toulouse is actually one of the oldest in Europe, founded way back in 1229.
1229, wow, that's medieval times.
Absolutely. So there's a long, distinguished tradition of learning and scholarship there across many fields.
And besides the main university, are there other important schools, especially given the aerospace focus?
Yes, definitely. Toulouse has several prestigious grandes écoles, these elite higher education institutions. And quite a few are specialized in aerospace engineering, electronics, computer science fields that directly feed into the local industry. It creates this powerful loop between education, research, and business.
Makes perfect sense. And all those students must make a difference to the city's atmosphere.
Massively. With nearly 140,000 students, Toulouse is the fourth biggest student city in France. That brings a real vibrancy, a youthfulness, and intellectual energy to the place. You feel it on the streets, in the cafes.
It sounds like a city that's constantly renewing itself, even with all that history. So as we wrap up this deep dive, what are the main things you think people should take away about Toulouse?
Well, I think we've seen it's much more than just the Pink City, although that's a great starting point. Its history is incredibly rich. Roman roots, Visigothic capital, the Counts, the woad trade, a really significant player over the centuries.
Right.
But crucially, it hasn't just rested on that history. It's adapted, embraced innovation, particularly in aerospace, becoming this European leader. You've got world-class culture, the UNESCO sites, the museums, alongside cutting-edge science and technology. And the educational side keeps feeding that dynamism. It's a fascinating mix.
It really does sound like a place where history, industry, and culture collide in a very compelling way. And maybe that nickname, La Ville Rose, captures something deeper than just the bricks, a kind of warmth and energy.
I think so. It feels like it reflects the spirit of the place, too. The energy of the students, the innovation, the connection to the sun in the south. It all adds to that rosy glow, perhaps.
Which leads us to a final thought for you, listening in. How often do we see this kind of powerful mix, a deep historical identity intertwined with a really specific, dominant modern industry? Can you think of other cities where that dynamic plays out so strongly, shaping its whole character? And what about other cities with their own unique nicknames or unofficial titles? Exploring those connections might give us all a fresh perspective on the places we live in or visit.